Good Monday evening, everybody. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center tracking a tropical storm Isaias, and it's moving here toward the Carolinas. They're getting some impacts there now. Conditions deteriorating in some areas, and getting some pretty high winds around Charleston, for instance. They're getting more of an impact here in toward that region. As we look here, they're seeing quite a few different reports. I'll go ahead and zoom on in. We'll go ahead and move away from the satellite. We're really seeing all these colors here get closer and closer toward land. We'll keep an eye on this imagery here throughout the evening, as we're going to be doing updates every half hour. And then also, as necessary here, is this could strengthen into a hurricane upon landfall, maybe right before here. So got to really be cognizant of it. But now here's our Doppler radar imagery right now. We're going to go ahead and look at this to show you what's happening here in this area, because I know there's a lot going on, a lot of interest up here. I know in North Florida, South Georgia, my primary area, we were talking about some of the impacts there in the coastal areas, but most of the impacts there really didn't materialize too much. We did have that rip current risk and the high surf, as well as that beach erosion and a gust or two of wind to tropical force. But that tropical storm warning is dropped at 11 a.m. We didn't even need to do that much coverage of it in our region because the impacts are so minimal, as the worst stayed offshore, and we were seeing that storm here really organized on the west side, a little further east there as well than it could have been. So that was some good news for our local area. But as we get up toward this region here, we're going to be watching in toward the Carolinas this evening, giving you those latest updates here. If you have relatives in this region, if you're watching from this region as well, I'll be trying to give you that very best information here. I'm looking here the chat sets and just trying to give the latest information, as we're going to have maybe a second hurricane landfall possibly here in the U.S. this season, and we're only on August 3rd. So things moving by pretty quickly here. It'd be a Cat 1, it'd be a weaker type storm in terms of pressure than Hannah, of course, but we got to watch. You see some of these stronger winds now moving on shore here as we're looking toward parts of this area. You see Georgetown not too far away here. They're under a hurricane warning, and you see some of these stronger winds. They're getting close here in the velocity. You see some of them here as we're starting to see some of these again move on shore. You see McClellanville, for instance, they're getting into some of these winds about 45, 50 according to radar estimates. We're looking down to the south here. Some of these different reports over the last little bit down toward Charleston have told the story. A peak gust there at 51 miles an hour at the James Island Yacht Club. A weak wind gust, they're calling it there, at 46 miles an hour at the Folly Beach Seaman Station. A gust of 41 miles an hour. A gust of 45 there in the region, and then a gust there at a 55 at a buoy. So getting some higher winds than what we saw in our area, getting more consistent winds in that tropical range with that tropical storm threat continuing there. The worst will be passing Charleston here off toward the east over the next little bit, but they're having some issues there, some power outages, which we'll try to get to here as we move along, as the power outages in Florida amounted to very little, and we were really lucky. We were really lucky here, folks, in our region. We barely saw any power outages. You get more power outages to accumulate in our region from afternoon storms than what we got here from this system. And again, just not much of an impact there into our region. But as we're looking here into the Carolinas, we really have to be mindful here of what is happening. Just going in some different velocity images we're watching here. The movement on this storm right now is north-northeast at about 16 miles per hour. And we'll be seeing some of these impacts moving to Georgetown and Myrtle Beach there, getting up toward Horry County there in South Carolina, and even into toward parts of southeastern North Carolina as well. So we're watching this. Let's give you a different perspective right now. We're going to go to the Wilmington radar, as there are some marine warnings in play, and those are probably for waterspout potential. There's a tornado watch here as well. Yeah, I can see the rotation. So let's pop up what I'm talking about here on the screen right now. We'll go ahead and show you what is happening. You can see some different areas here of spin, some greens and reds, or just even greens with some lighter colors next to each other. That's signs of rotation, and we're going to be watching maybe some tornadic activity as we're looking ahead here in toward the evening hours. So folks will need to be having multiple ways to get alerts here as we're looking ahead. Not just that wind threat, not just the surge threat, which I'll talk about here too, but a tornado threat as well. A pretty big event, not a catastrophic event, but a pretty big event here that people will be watching as we're moving along through the evening hours. So again, you see some of these different areas of spin looking off the Wilmington radar to give you the better perspective here for now. We see some of this action getting closer here towards southeastern North Carolina, as well as conditions deteriorate there as we get there up toward New Hanover County. So again, we're continuing to watch this situation very carefully here as we monitor it. We're going to be here giving you those latest updates as the conditions much worse than what any part of Florida saw. I mean, already we're seeing conditions worse than what anybody in the state of Florida saw from this system as the conditions are deteriorating here in toward this region. We're going to lose a lot of power. I'll be kind of getting to that here in just a moment as well, but I'll go ahead and put myself back on camera for now. We'll continue to look here at some of our different tools in the Weather Center to give you that latest information. But again, just trying to give you various perspectives here on this storm. Again, there is our system here. There's our system. And again, we're continuing to watch it. And let's go ahead now and pop up a weather stem camera as we go ahead and broaden the view again. You see some of that moisture there, again, trying to work there toward areas in southeastern North Carolina. And we have the UNC Wilmington, North Hanover County weather stem camera ready to go right now. And you can see some nasty conditions in that area. Pretty nasty, but it's going to get worse here throughout the evening. It's going to get worse before it gets better, that's for sure. Going to have quite a few power outages in this region. Maybe a hurricane landfall in the U.S. If not a hurricane landfall, impacts will be pretty similar with lots of power outages as we look ahead with this. So again, there's your view from the weather stem camera there as we look from that New Hanover County camera on the UNC Wilmington campus there. So again, watching that situation carefully. Again, we're going to continue to look here at some of these different views here as the evening does move along. Again, there's your view of the storm. Let's move to some of our other systems right now. We'll kind of move along a little bit here in the update as we're on for a normal update here as well. At this time, we're not going to get too much into local weather for North Florida, South Georgia. We'll give you a look here at the rainfall forecast for the next week, though, as there is a chance here of some showers and some thunderstorms around. The chances actually increasing now. The storm's moving away. Kind of intriguing to see, but we're going to go ahead now and switch you over to the tornado watch here on our other graphic right now, because I know this is something that people are interested in seeing. I have this up right now on our GR level, our GR Earth computer. As I move away from our GR level 3 computer, you see the tornado watch in that yellow color and the marine warnings. I know last year with Dorian, they really had a nasty wake-up call there with a whole bunch of tornadic weather in the region there. As we were looking at that scenario, it was pretty nasty there with all those different supercells, and we'll have to watch here to see how things evolve. You see the position, by the way, here expected to be just north of Wilmington at 2 in the morning, but here's the current Doppler radar imagery. You can see here what's happening. You see the center here. You see that, and maybe you can even call it eye wall here, impacting parts of Charleston. We're getting some of the stronger winds. They are in toward that region. They are in toward the state of South Carolina. And we're continuing to watch here as we look ahead. You see, again, the tornado watch, that goes to 2 a.m., but probably going to get extended here even later on in the time frame because we have that tornado threat continuing for a while. And even a tornado threat as we look ahead in toward that Tuesday up all the way there in the northeast. A lot of population centers under a tornado threat. Maybe you can get under tornado watches there as we do look ahead. Here is a look here at your wind arrows right now. You're able to see where the system is. And right now we have that center. I'll go ahead and measure it. It isn't exact, but about 40 miles here. Maybe if you could say southeast of Charleston right now, or east of Charleston even, if you kind of measure it just to the north, somewhere in that region, probably, but you could say east-southeast here at this point. So we're continuing to watch this scenario as, again, it does evolve. We'll take the wind arrows off now. We're going to put our wind field information on. I know this has been helpful for some of you as we've been watching. You see these different areas of red. This was at 5 o'clock, but we're starting to get some of these stronger winds now. There's gusts there to over 60 miles an hour or so approaching the coast, and then gust over 60, damaging gusts. As I zoom in a little too far here, we zoom in a little far, but you can see gusts to 60 here at 2 in the morning. Jacksonville, North Carolina, Wilmington, you get the idea here. as we do look ahead. And then as we get further up, we're going to be in between points here. So you got to keep in mind the whole corridor here is going to get a lot of damaging wind potential. But as we get here toward, it looks like 2 p.m., Philadelphia even maybe damaging winds. Could see a lot of power outages there. And New York City, I mean, this is a wide-ranging threat here, folks. And that's why I'm so concerned for power outages. As I'm just looking here in the chat session, getting those reports in, some flooded advisories in play for some spots. Mainly here toward Charleston right now. They're getting some heavier rain there, and they're an area, they're called a low country, and that's an area that floods here as we look over the last hour. Not too much, but as we look just east of there, I think is where they're really pinpointing things. You can kind of see it here in the last 12 hours even. We're seeing some of these numbers add up, and a lot of this has been over the water, but that's about to change. You kind of wonder why we got spared in the First Coast region, and that's because most of this stayed off, but quarter half inch toward Jacksonville. St. Augustine, same thing. Things weren't too significant, only gets to about 40, a little over in a couple spots here today. Things were pretty tame in our region, and that was some really good news. But again, you see that forecast, you see the storm system here, and you've seen that tornado threat. We're watching that tornado risk. It'll evolve here further north as we look later on tonight. Let's go ahead and pull up the power outage information right now. We'll go ahead and switch on over here because I'm sure these numbers are adding up now as we're starting to get some of the numbers here into the system as the storm puts some of those higher wind values here on the shore. These numbers aren't that much right now, but this is still going to add up here as we look later on. This is poweroutage.us, and we're looking here. Only 379 customers right now out in Charleston County, but these numbers are going to go up pretty quick probably as we look to the north, especially. Only one for Georgetown County, 2,793 there for Horry County in the Myrtle Beach area. These numbers are going to go up, so you want to charge up your devices. I'll emphasize that here again in just a moment, but you want to charge up your devices if you're in this area because of these higher potential here, for power outages to occur. Again, a nasty situation here in toward the Carolinas tonight. So we're going to be watching this all evening as we see how things do progress here, doing these updates every half hour and as necessary here in the Weather Center. Again, just kind of give you a different perspective there with those power outages. Now back to the maps here again. You see our storm system, and now let's go ahead and give you that cone perspective. I know a lot of you interested in that cone perspective here. So let me go ahead. I'm going to check something real quick with the Hurricane Center. Make sure we don't have any new updates because this could become a hurricane here at any point as we're looking to get some reports out of that region. Hurricane hunters there. We're going to be trying to get the latest information out of them. Nothing new right now. So we'll go ahead and pull up our graphics computer where we have the hurricane season information up. You'll be able to see what I'm talking about here. And this is a storm here with 70-mile-per-hour maximum sustained winds. Again, you see the hurricane warnings down in that red color, and this is a storm moving off toward the north-northeast at about 16 miles an hour. That minimum central pressure there at 993 millibars, and a hurricane warning from the South Santee River in South Carolina to Surf City, North Carolina. So a nasty situation for those folks. The conditions will be pretty nasty here as we look ahead. May not quite become a hurricane, but it's close enough. The impact will be pretty much the same here as folks will really need to be cognizant of what is happening. As we look here at the European model, you see some strong winds even here at 8 a.m. on that Tuesday getting into Norfolk, Virginia there, a highly populated area, Virginia Beach as well. Going to lose a lot of power probably because this storm here right along the coast, just inland, going to be still having some energy with it, going to be kind of combining here in the overall pattern, and really just need to be watching here for a lot of power outages. I think this could be the biggest threat from this system overall. I mean, of course, you're not necessarily going to have lots of life from that, but you can based on certain scenarios, and you just have to be cognizant here, have multiple ways to get those alerts here for the tornado threat, which will knock out power as well. And you'll be able to see here, I have it in the capital letters, but those in the path, you should chart your devices there. They need to chart their devices because you see here, these are tropical force winds. The most are likely arrival times for them. You see by 8 o'clock here in the Ward Wilmington, 2 a.m. as we get there in toward areas around maybe New Bern, North Carolina, somewhere in that area, Raleigh as well, even getting inland there with some of these winds. Maybe not quite as bad there, but still having an impact. And further on in the picture, you'll be seeing 8 a.m. as we get up there in toward areas closer to Washington, D.C., 2 p.m. into New Jersey, further up and closer to New York City. 8 p.m. You're seeing it's even getting into Vermont there and into New Hampshire. So this is going to have wide ranging impacts. That's, I think, going to be the biggest deal from this, because damaging winds, I mean, this is like a long track severe thunderstorm that's going to knock out power, to be quite honest here. And you're going to have it lasting for a while, meaning more power going to be knocked out, and you're getting a typical severe thunderstorm. So that is very important here to emphasize. These are not rural areas here for the most part. These are urban areas. You're going to lose a lot of power. I mean, it might better get it back on pretty quick, but I'm talking about, if not tens of thousands without power, maybe even hundreds of thousands at some point without power, because the storm's going to move even quicker here. So it's going to be impacting some different areas, as we see some reports from broadcast media there in the Charleston area. They relate a picture of damage that occurred to an apartment complex, amenity center, due to a portion of a tree falling through it. The structure's heavily damaged, and the time there on 3:45 was estimated based on Doppler radar indications. So we'll watch again to see more reports like that, maybe knocking out power. You see the storm surge threat, and actually this is the wrong graphic I have in here. We'll try to get you the right graphic here in just a moment. This was a graphic I had earlier, but we did have that threat here as we got to 1 to 3 feet. I do have the other graphic in here, so we'll switch back to the radar real quick, and we'll show you what is happening here with that as we try to give you that updated graphic here. Again, we've had those high surf values, things like that here across the region, but we want to go ahead and emphasize that storm surge threat there, as we have seen a increase there. I know I had the wrong one checked here in our graphic system, as we're getting pretty deep here in the cover in this storm, but I think we have the right one in here now. So let's go ahead and get back as we continue to watch the system, watch the impacts grow there in toward the Carolinas. So here's the right graphic. We have 1 to 3 feet there, Savannah River, Edisto Beach, and then Edisto Beach to Cape Fear. You're under that storm surge warning, and then as we get from the South Santee River to Cape Fear there, we're talking about 3 to 5 feet of storm surge. So beach erosion, dangerous, rip currents, high surf, but even some damage there possible as we get in that Myrtle Beach area. So really just need to be cognizant there. We have that storm surge warning. It also does include some other areas there, like the Pamlico and Albemarle Sounds, including some different area rivers, and then also the Oregon Inlet there. As we look up North Carolina there, looks like to the North Carolina-Virginia border there as well. And that actually is something that might be new in here. I need to go ahead and make sure I note that on the graphic for the next time around, as we do have that in there now, it seems, in that storm surge warning. So I did not notice that earlier, but it is now in there in toward some of those different areas. We've been trying to give you that latest information. So again, we're continuing to watch here. We're continuing to watch that rainfall situation here as well. And you do see over 8 inches of rain possible in spots here in this red color, this moderate risk zone. And we're going to go ahead and be watching here Myrtle Beach. And luckily this is a pretty fast mover, but Myrtle Beach getting there up in toward the Raleigh area, up toward Richmond, Norfolk, getting all the way up there, even in toward part of that region further up here in toward part of that DC area, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, New York here too. So just kind of stay tuned, stay cognizant, and now kind of bringing things back to home right now. We're going to have quite a bit of rain in our region as we're looking ahead here. You see some of these colors here. You're going to be seeing 1 inch here around the Stark area, give or take the next 7 days, with more moisture coming in the picture. You see areas to the south there, down toward Gainesville, Ocala, Orlando, even higher numbers. And you see, of course, the footprint of our storm system in the Carolinas here with those totals adding on up. We'll continue to watch that. Now let's go ahead and go back to the radar scope to give you another update, another perspective here on this storm. We'll go ahead and see what's happening. You even see a TVS signature, and we'll probably have some tornado warnings here pretty soon. So just going to be watching that scenario carefully here as the evening does evolve here with tornadic weather. Again, it's a big story here in the this region. Again, people wanting to stay safe here, have those ways to get those alerts. Again, charging up those devices, critical here because we're going to have a lot of people without power. I feel pretty confident in saying that. I know this storm has a little bit higher pressure, but we do have a situation here. Where the overall scenario is one here where we have just so much wind, as I'll be able to pull that wind energy again on our storm relative velocity mode here. Again, you see these brighter colors here. You see the eye wall, I guess you can call it here. Even a weaker part of it may be impacting here parts of that region around McClellanville. And we'll be seeing Georgetown there eventually, and you see some of the stronger weather. This Jackson not going to stay offshore like it did here in toward Florida. We got so lucky, but as it gets up toward Wilmington, Jacksonville, we'll have to continue to watch. Jacksonville, North Carolina, New Bern. You get the idea. A lot of issues there with this coming on through here pretty quick. So just kind of stay tuned there. Again, this isn't a catastrophic storm. This isn't Hurricane Michael. This isn't Hurricane Irma for our region here in North Florida, or even down toward the Tampa area, Fort Myers. But it is still a storm that's going to knock out a lot of power. That's going to probably, again, be the storm's legacy here, just based on everything I'm seeing. Can't guarantee that. We're going to have some storm surge issues. But, again, we're watching here some of these impacts here in toward this area. Again, let's go ahead now. We'll go ahead and pop me back up here. We're approaching 7 o'clock, so we're probably going to stick with you until right past 7 and then go off till 7:30. But again, this is our rainfall forecast. Again, you see the Tallahassee area a little bit less, but you guys still getting into some of this action here as well as we get over toward Leon County. We'll be seeing maybe around a half inch or so, give or take, in that forecast. So just something to watch here as we are looking ahead in the picture here in the future. Again, we're watching this thread. Let's go ahead now and look at some other information. We have our storm names in here. The Atlantic hurricane season running through November 30th. And we have Isaias here on that list highlighted. And again, it's going to be one that we're going to be watching here as we're looking ahead, as we've been showing you up in toward the Mid-Atlantic after getting past the Carolinas, getting in the Northeast here as well. As more marine warnings come out, I know they're really watching this, and we're really watching hurricane season because we're still over a month away. So if you're watching from North Florida, South Georgia, saying this storm didn't have much of an impact, because of course it didn't have much of an impact, if any impact really, in some of our area. It's one season that is that you want to pay attention because things can change quick here. I know the forecast, we had some issues there. I know aircraft, there's not as much data in the models here this year because of the coronavirus. There's not as many commercial planes flying. They give us that data, so unfortunately that might have played a role here in some of the model issues here with our storm, and we just got to pay attention because we could have the flip side of things. We could have a system here that we're all of a sudden having to forecast a really strong situation. I mean, Michael kind of was like that in some regard, as all of a sudden it just evolved real quick, and people had 72 hours or so to prepare for a storm like they'd never seen down there toward Panama City. I mean, even took them about 48 hours before to really know just how bad the storm was going to be in toward that area, at least an idea of that there. So you just got to be watching as we're looking later in the hurricane season, that peak heading for another month. We're going to have more storms on this list here. We'll be watching here as we look down, and I'm sure we're going to have plenty more. They're going to be talking about Josephine at some point, wherever that is. Didn't end up developing there off of the coast of Africa. Talking about Kyle, talking about Laura, talking about Marco. You get the idea here. And I mean, and if we're the way place we're on right now, to be quite honest, hopefully this doesn't happen like this. We can't go this far in the forecasting. I mean, but we have to watch here. At some point, might get in that Greek alphabet, even another set of names we have to use, just because we're running out of names here in this hurricane season. We did that in 2005, of course, when we had that terrible, terrible year with Ivan and Katrina and Rita there as well. I mean, we just had so much going on that year, and again, we were really watching things so carefully there in toward the picture. Looking here at some more information here in the chat session. Again, we're continuing to watch here the latest information as it does come out, and again, we're just trying to give you those latest updates here. Let me see here. There's nothing new right now, and again, we're going to continue to watch I know going back to 2005, I know we had Dennis there as well. So just a very busy year. And again, just watching there in the Florida scenario. It might have been 2004. I have to take my notes on that because I was a storm that didn't really impact us here in Northeast Florida, Southeast Georgia. So it might have been 04, but 04 and 05 were both very busy. And again, something that, again, we were really watching here in the Florida time frame. So again, we are just talking about so much here in the tropics. Let's go back to radar scope as we welcome in here people at 7 o'clock here Eastern time on your Monday. I'm meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center. Again, we're continuing to look here at our radar scope computer. You see some of that action, see some of that rotation here. You see that tornado vortex signature, some of these conditions deteriorating in northeastern South Carolina, southeastern North Carolina. And again, we're going to just have to continue to watch here as the weather picture does progress. It's going to get worse before it gets better. A landfall late this evening here as we look into where that Wilmington area, maybe a little east, a little west, but you get the idea. They're getting some of that worst of the weather out that way. So again, we're going to continue to watch that. Let me go ahead now and pop me back up again. We'll go ahead and move myself back on the camera. Again, there's your names. We're continuing to look here at that. Now let's give you another look here at this storm from our GR level 3 computer here. As people again are just tuning in, you see here some of the accent I'll put on velocity where you see some of these stronger winds coming in here. We're talking about Georgetown Canyon. I mean, even as we get closer here toward the coast, you're seeing some of this here as well. And going to be eventually getting in some more populated areas, knocking out power. So charge up your devices. Myrtle Beach, Surfside Beach, getting there as well. Carolina Shores, even as we're looking ahead later on. You saw Carolina Beach maybe in the edge of the screen. If you didn't, I'll zoom in real quick. There it is. I'll be watching you guys up there. So again, this is a nasty storm here. There's the eye. I think you can call it that. Not sort of necessarily on infrared, but a situation we're really watching very carefully. Again, hurricane warnings remaining in effect here for the region. Again, getting better organized after the 5 o'clock update there. Strong winds, heavy rainfall likely, and they're going to be just keeping an eye on this scenario. Again, hurricane warning there does extend from the South Santee River in South Carolina to Surf City in North Carolina. And we'll be watching here as the evening progresses, seeing some of these wind speeds. We'll go ahead and look live now here over on our other system. You'll be able to look here at some of these. I know I see one that pops out. Looking at Georgetown now, gust to 32 knots. So we're talking about 37 miles an hour in toward that region right now, in toward Georgetown. So again, we're getting some pretty high winds, and we're going to see those tropical force gusts here become more predominant. We're getting more occasional ones at this point, but that's going to change here soon, I suspect, here as we get more in the eye wall, the area around the center of circulation here of our tropical storm Isaias. Again, a tornado watch does remain in effect. You see the track here moving up. As you got to keep in mind, you got to extrapolate here this area of red, these stronger winds getting here in toward parts of northeast South Carolina, Myrtle Beach, getting up in toward Wilmington, Greenville, and then as you look ahead, Virginia Beach, somewhere in that general vicinity. Ironically, have multiple warnings for other action here in toward the Philadelphia area, not really related to this system, though we do have a pattern here where you're seeing quite a bit of moisture overall. You see some thunderstorm warnings there in that region. You see, as we extrapolate Philadelphia, get into these winds that are knock out power, New York City even, and then weakening some as we get further up. But I was looking at something that said Hartford there into the action. Let's pull up some more model information here real quick. And it's always important to do this here as we look at some different things. And most of these here have a tropical storm at a point later on, but you got to kind of extrapolate here. There's a chance it can become a hurricane at one point in between, like what the Hurricane Center, the Force of Forecast does have, their official forecast. So you got to just kind of be mindful of that here as well. Again, looking at some of our different information here. Recon, not seeing much yet, but we'll be getting that information here as it does come out from the National Hurricane Center, from the hurricane hunters that are going in here to give us that sample of information. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this long update for now. Again, if you're watching Northeast Florida, Southeast Georgia, we'll pop back in real quick here toward our region. See, there are some storms around Albany, but not too big of a factor there right now. We'll watch. I haven't seen any significant weather advisories here in the chat session So that's some good news. We do have temperatures pretty warm around, and that's going to be a story as we look ahead here toward our region. We're not doing an actual forecast here today because we're just so busy with the tropics, but as we're looking ahead here, we're going to be seeing some warm temperatures as rain chances here, that moisture coming back into the picture, and we'll be watching here. I'll be doing updates here as we look ahead tomorrow with the storm system here as well. Now later in the week we might be taking some time off depending on exactly what happens here with this system, what happens with our local forecast, how predominant the storms are around and how significant they are. So we'll kind of be talking about it here probably as we get later on in the picture, but we're focusing on our storm right now. If you're watching for storm coverage, again, we're still watching the system, our tropical storm right on the edge of becoming a hurricane here. Watching these wind reports carefully in toward the region as we continue to see some of these different impacts here from our system. I'll be back at 7:30 with more information. Stay tuned, everybody. Meteorologist Casey Cloud back here in the Weather Center at 7:30 on this Monday evening. We're continuing to track Tropical Storm Isaias. You see here our system. You see the areas there of wind, and we're going to continue to watch this scenario as it does evolve throughout the evening hours. You see the wind arrows that kind of tell the story here, and we'll go ahead and pull up a more high-resolution view here of the system right now, so you can kind of see what is happening just a little bit better. And you can see some of the stronger winds here getting into Georgetown. I'm clocking about 45 miles an hour, give or take. Looking at different velocity modes, about the same on that mode as well. 54 here at the coast, though. We're getting right there at the coast there in the parts of Georgetown County, South Carolina. That region may actually, if I pick this up, it may be right there on the edge of that county as we're looking down here toward the south, and we get closer towards some of these other communities here as well. But you get the idea. You see some of these stronger winds on the back side here too showing up. I'm seeing numbers 86, 87 miles an hour. We'll have to see exactly what evolves as that looks ahead. Now, it sometimes depends on radar direction, radar mode, but we have to just continue to watch here as we track this throughout the evening hours, as we continue to give those latest updates here on everything that's happening with this storm system. Again, Tropical Storm Isaias here going to have an impact. So let me go ahead and see if we can switch some things up here. Take a look here at some other information in the Weather Center. I think we have some power outage details we want to get to right now. So let's go ahead and pop that system here on, and you'll be able to see what's happening. We have a lot out toward areas that aren't really being directly impacted by the storm as we get out toward Rutherford and Cleveland. But then as we get to coastal areas, we're seeing these numbers go up in Brunswick County, North Carolina, getting over to New Hanover. There's none right now there. And you see same there as we get toward Onslow County. But again, we're continuing to watch here as we look ahead as the conditions do continue to deteriorate here across this region. We'll be waiting for that new 8 o'clock update here from the National Hurricane Center, because that'll be important to see if maybe we have a hurricane on our hands. We'll have to find out here and see exactly what they're telling us as the evening has progressed. We'll continue to give you those latest updates here. Again, you see some of these impacts as we get over toward Georgetown, and Myrtle Beach will be getting some of this power outages going up here more than likely in Myrtle Beach. I know I sent you this graphic here that I'm about to pull up earlier, but I want to just kind of reemphasize things here with the time frame, and I just want everybody to make sure they're charging up their devices here if you're in the path. Now, as we get into Canada, the threat maybe not quite as much, even in the Maine, but as we look further down here, the winds will be higher, maybe more destructive, so we have to be mindful. We have to be cognizant here of the overall situation. You see these time frames. We're getting here to those tropical winds, and it'll be too late to really do much prep, and you could be losing power at any point here once you get to this time frame or near this time frame here when those tropical force winds arrive. So again, just charge up your devices. I mean, and maybe you don't lose power, but at least you're prepared here in that scenario. This isn't a destructive type situation for most people, but we're talking about a situation where just a lot of people are going to be in the dark here more than likely as we get up here from the Carolinas to the Mid-Atlantic to the Northeast. I just want everybody to be prepared here for this potential. We're also looking here at some other information. I have the storm surge graphic in here giving you that latest updated information. We have that storm surge warning from Modesto Beach, South Carolina, to Cape Fear, North Carolina, that Oregon Inlet to North Carolina, Virginia border area as well. And we're talking some other areas, and there's some different sounds and rivers there too included. You see some of that information on your screen as we're watching that storm surge threat here. We'll have to watch to see exactly what evolves. I know there's been some flooding as we get down toward, it looks like Charleston there with some minor flooding on East Bay Street. That was there around 7:10, some high astronomical tides here. That's a factor here with the storm system. We have those higher tides here with the full moon around. So again, we're just having to be cognizant of that here too as we look ahead into toward these overnight hours. Again, we're continuing to watch here. We're continuing to look at this latest information. Let's go ahead, pop up our Wilmington radar now too. We're going to continue to watch this because this kind of gives us another perspective here on this situation, this scenario, and we'll be able to show you how things are progressing here in the overall situation. You see Little River getting the Carolina shores right near the radar site there in Wilmington, getting in some of this action here. Again, waiting for that new update from the National Hurricane Center. You see Oak Island, Bald Head Island there as well. You see, even as I look up there, Carolina Beach, and they were really impacted here by Florence as we look back in time. So again, we're continuing to watch here just how things do above, continuing to watch here this overall scenario. Again, we're trying to give you those latest updates here. As this evening does move along, I'll go ahead and pull up velocity. See some of these stronger winds trying to reach the surface. That we might have some actual signatures right off the coast. Here's the coast up here, it looks like. But we're looking here quite a few. I mean, we have a tornadic signature right there, a water spout right here, but probably going to be a tornado warning storm here soon. Another area right in there. And then as we look down here, we're seeing some rotation. This is further off, but we'll watch to see if that impacts an area at some point. The storm has an easterly component, so maybe not. It might roll into at some point here. We'll just have to watch. You see some rotation in this area here too. So again, we're continuing to track things at some different areas of rotation that are popping on out here. And we got to be cognizant of them for some tornadic activity. I know last year Dorian, for a lot of areas up here, wasn't hugely impactful. I mean, for other areas it was, but we had those tornadoes early in the morning time frame, just really causing havoc. We had so many supercells on radar, something that I hadn't really seen much textbook type supercells there. There were many supercells, I guess you could call them, and we just have to watch to see how this situation evolves, because some of the parameters are favorable here for this tornadic action here as we look ahead. So some of these tornadoes probably on the weaker side may not really evolve, but some of them could be a little bit stronger. And we're seeing some areas here. I'm kind of noting something that it looks almost similar to last year with Dorian. I'm seeing some different structures here. We'll have to see. I'm just going to pull up our storm relative. I'm looking at this here for the first time. I see we have vortex data now in from the hurricane hunters. We'll try to give you that information here in a moment. See if we have a hurricane maybe on our hands here too. But let's pull this up now, and you see where most of those points are, not all of them, but most of them, we have some areas of rotation. So we have to watch here to see how this situation evolves. Again, I know there's high surf issues there in the Florida region as well. But again, there is your look at that right there on our storm relative velocity mode. Expecting tornado warnings, a tornado watch in play until 2 a.m. here for this region. I'll go ahead, pop myself back on the camera now. Again, we'll continue to look here at some of our different modes. Here we look under the hood. We need to just be cognizant here of everything that's happening in this situation. Again, that storm surge threat here as well. So just kind of stick with me here throughout the evening. We'll be giving you those latest updates. Again, there's your velocity mode. We're looking at the system. We're looking at this overall threat. Let's go back over now to our other tool where we have our system showing that tornado watch in play. I'm going to pop up now some of our tornado parameters here, and I tell you the radar off. And now we see actually some down to the south. We have some here right in this region. We'll have to watch to see how they spread in here as we look later on. We'll have to just continue to be cognizant here in this area. We'll have to be giving you those latest updates here throughout the evening hours. Now, in terms of wind gusts, you see reported at Georgetown 36 knots. So that's tropical force. We're talking 41 miles an hour, getting here up toward North Myrtle. I'll say this again, North Myrtle Beach. You see the Grand Strand there, 30 knots. So talking about 35 miles an hour. So just under tropical force there. But you get the idea, some pretty strong winds coming in the picture. We're going to watch to see how more of these winds translate to the surface, how some of these values go up here throughout the evening hours. I know we're continuing to watch that Hurricane Center information as well. Let's pull in some recon data. Here's some information, and that is 68 knots here. Let's see how this correlates with the Doppler. Let's see. Ooh, that's interesting. So that's 69 actually knots there. As I look at that, I think we're looking on the one right before that, 69 knots. If that is a verifiable wind reading, we have a hurricane on our hands, folks, because 69 knots is equivalent to 79 miles an hour. So we'll have to see what the Hurricane Center determines here. That's in that southern western part of the eye wall, it seems here. So we may have a hurricane on our hands here. We'll find out in the latest update. And these pressures here, again, sometimes this information is skewed, but It may or may not be. We're seeing around 985. They might translate this a little bit differently, but we're seeing this live data. They'll have to go over and see what is in fact correct. But they have 985 here as well, so we may have a hurricane on our hands here, folks. If this information is accurate, that pressure's gone down quite a bit, and the winds have gone up here as well, and we do have a hurricane. So that's something we'll have to watch for in the 8 o'clock update. If we get that information here, I'll be on before 8 if it's within a certain amount of time. But if it's right before here, within a minute or two, 8 o'clock, I'll make sure to give it to you on our 8 o'clock update. For now, meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here with some breaking news. You just saw it run across the top of the screen a moment ago. We now have a Category 1 hurricane, folks, here once again. Isaias is now a Category 1 hurricane. Late breaking information. We gave you an update here on that a few minutes ago. We thought the hurricane hunters were finding some of that criteria there, meeting some of that criteria with the wind speeds here with this system, and now officially upgraded again to a Category 1 hurricane. So we're likely going to have our second hurricane landfall here, within just a period of about 9 days in the U.S. Our second U.S. hurricane landfall within about 9 days here, folks. So again, we're watching this. We're going to continue to watch this here in the Weather Center because we want to go ahead and give you that latest information here. We thought it was more to find here in the Hurricane Hunters. Right in here is where it looks like on that southwestern side, a pressure down and wind up. We got 69 knots, which actually is equivalent there to about looks like about 79 miles an hour, but they went 75, maybe kind of thinking it was a little high, at least for the current update. But again, we do have a hurricane again on our hands, the late breaking information, the pressure down officially to 988 millibars in the region. I know the tropical storm warning's been canceled south of Odesto Beach south there, and the storm surge warning south of Folly Beach has been discontinued as well. But again, we now have a hurricane on our hands, a Category 1 storm. We even have a tornado warning here in parts of East North Carolina now. Tornado warning here for eastern Brunswick County. A possible tornado there in the region indicated by the Doppler radar algorithm. So this is around Oak Island. I know we were tracking some of those areas of rotation here a moment ago too, and you can see some of those here on our shear tracker. So again, we now have a hurricane, folks, a Category 1 storm, and it's just hours from making landfall here in the U.S. So again, the breaking news now, a Category 1 hurricane here with this. Let's go ahead and go over to our other system as we see a tornado warning continuing here. We see some of these winds getting higher now on our radar scope computer system off the Wilmington radar. You see some of these brighter colors showing up, and these are indicative of winds here above the surface anyway, getting upward about 90, 95 miles an hour or so. So this storm really evolving here, coming together. Now a hurricane probably going to make a landfall here in the U.S. in the next few hours. Don't expect it to weaken here before it does, so can't guarantee that. This storm's been unpredictable, but looking like we're going to have a hurricane landfall in the U.S. Again, breaking weather. If you're just tuning in, this is now a Category 1 hurricane. The pressure's gone down, the winds have gone up, and it's not going to change the impacts too much, but it's still to have a second hurricane landfall here in the U.S. within a 9-day period is a pretty big deal. So a hurricane likely going to be making landfall here in the next several hours. This storm system, we're watching the movement here. I know we were tracking that movement at 16 earlier on this, so I'll kind of do a little track here northeast at about 16 from the center. I know the movement now may have changed. I'll have to double check that, but just look at my notes from earlier. And if you kind of track this here, go northeast, maybe something like this here. We're talking about 90 miles away. So if you kind of measure here in that aspect of the scenario, we're talking here, doing the math, that's about 16, 17 miles an hour. So we're talking here, if you multiply that there, you multiply about 34 there by 2, you're getting there to about 68. That's about 4 hours away. And then so you're about 5-6 hours away here, somewhere in that range, it looks like, from a landfall. 5-6 hours, maybe somewhere in that time frame, depends on if it wobbles here a little west or a little east, of course, because the way the coast is set up here, it could make a big difference in terms of that time, just because if it doesn't hit a spot, it might take a little while to slide on shore. But again, we have a hurricane here. We're watching this carefully. Again, that movement off toward the northeast here as of the check here just a little while ago. So again, there's your storm system. Again, now Category 1 storm, the late breaking information here. Gonna have our second hurricane landfall here in the U.S. in this pretty much as many weeks. I mean, you could kind of say we didn't have one last week, but the timing of the weeks, but you get the idea here, folks. Again, we'll continue to watch this here, a confirmed tornado now. I'm being told here by my system as we get toward parts of North Carolina. Let's go to our other system now. How are they confirming this? This is a radar confirmed tornado. Okay, so let's go ahead and pop this up now. We'll zoom on in here in toward this region, and we're looking here in toward, it might be the Bald Head Island area. Let's see. Yeah, over Bald Head Island. I can see that on my other mode here, so let's pop this up so I can kind of give you some more perspective. If you have relatives in this area, they got to be in shelter because this is a pretty tight circulation here. We were warning you about circulations like this, but you see it here on the Doppler radar technology, and then they go to correlation coefficient. I'll switch this over in a second, but let me circle this first, just so you kind of see what I'm talking about. Once I switch it over, I would think we'd have a clear signature with this, because that's a pretty tight circulation here. So correlation coefficient, you should see it kind of pop out a little here with the blues maybe in this region. And so take a second because it just takes a little while here to load all that information in. But again, we're watching here in that general area here inward, and you see actually it's moved now a little. That's how quick these tropical tornadoes are. It's already moved from the spot where we thought we'd have it, because it's got a frame coming in there at 7:59. But that's obviously a dropout there in the CCs, and you see it here north of Bald Head Island. Again, there's your tornado. There it is, and we'll go back to storm relative as this thing's moving pretty fast here. Again, we have a tornado on the ground. We now have a hurricane as well. So things really escalating here in the Carolinas with Hurricane Isaias. Again, you see what we're talking about here with the correlation coefficient. Now comparing it to the signature, that tornado here, we're watching it as it does track across this area. You see other areas of rotation as well. It's a confirmed tornado moving northwest at 50 miles an hour. So we have, it looks like, I know you can't see some of these areas. I'll move this over so maybe we can actually show you some of this just a little bit better here. Man, we can't really do it on this. If I maybe move this over a little more even. There you go. Okay, so again, let me kind of try to highlight some of you in this path we're talking about. It looks like Caswell Beach there, as well as Southport, getting to Oak Island, Ocean Crest Pier, St. James and Long Beach, also over to Boylan Springs Lakes, Mill Creek, getting toward also the Brunswick County Community College main campus. So a tornado on the ground here. We don't know exactly how strong it is, as we have some of these stronger winds overall, but I'll zoom in here to show you what I'm talking about. You see all these winds around it, and then as we get in here, we're seeing winds 92 miles an hour. We don't know exactly how this is translating, but we see the wind a little stronger, the tornado on the ground. I see some information now in the chat session that the Brunswick County there in North Carolina Emergency Management reporting a lot of fire alarms set off there. So they're going to be trying to get some information on that. So again, a tornado on the ground here in this area in parts of North Carolina. There's another update. As you see these winds here, we're seeing hurricane force winds in this area, it seems, with this tornado that's on the ground. Again, we've been watching it over the last few minutes. Let's go ahead now and put on our correlation coefficient here as we look through some of our other tools that we can have here, some of them that we have at our disposal. We'll get a tornado on the ground there. We're going to have this in this scenario. I won't be on for all these, of course, but we're watching right here closer to the storm. Sometimes it can be stronger closer to the storm. We'll just have to wait and see. But as we go back to the normal reflectivity mode, again, we have a tornado on the ground there in North Carolina. We have a Category 1 hurricane now with this storm. I'll come back on camera as we wrap up the update for now, as we have the situation again escalating here in this area. New tornado warning. We're going to have most of these coming in here as we look ahead because we haven't had so many of them yet. They're starting to get going now here with this system, with this hurricane. Again, Category 1. You see the structure here as we're getting the mesoscale discussion as well. Again, this tornado warning for Horry County as well as Brunswick and Columbus. So we'll go ahead here and we'll see the one pop on here. I don't have the right radar for this, but we'll just say some of these areas in this tornado warning. And you see some of these different communities like Carolina Shores here right on the edge of this. Longwood there as well. So again, a new tornado warning in this area. Again, we're watching the storm systems in Charleston radar. I'll probably be switching to Wilmington here pretty soon. But again, you see Georgetown getting some stronger winds here. Things starting to get worse here in the region. I'll be back around 8:30 unless we have new information. But again, we now have a Category 1 hurricane on our hands, a Category 1 storm. We just want people to be very mindful of what is happening, getting more damage reports there toward McClellanville. And in terms of power outages, those numbers I would think are going up here. Let me check them. We have about 4,600 customers in South Carolina now, according to PowerEd.us. Still, not too many going up in this area. Actually, some other acts in here, not really directly related to this action that we're talking about. So we'll continue to watch. We'll be back here on 8:30 with more information. Again, tornado in the ground in North Carolina, a tornado warning there in Horry County, South Carolina, and we now have a Category 1 hurricane on our hands moving toward these areas. Meteorologist Casey Cloud here, back at the bottom of the hour as we continue to watch a hurricane now. That's the late breaking news. If you're just tuning in here to the coverage, I'm meteorologist Casey Cloud. Just about 45 minutes ago or so, the hurricane hunters there did agree on that information, I guess, with the Hurricane Center, that we do have a hurricane now, as that information did get transmitted by them here, even going back about an hour or so ago now with this. And again, situation now, we have a Category 1 storm, a maximum sustained winds at about 75 miles an hour or so as it does get closer and closer to the coast. We're talking about a movement here north-northeast at about 16 miles an hour. I know you guys are kind of curious on when landfall is going to be. I was showing you this earlier, and I'm going to show you this again because I think it can be kind of helpful here in this situation. And now you got to keep in mind the direction of exactly the movement here is a little bit questionable because there could be some wobbles in this, but I'm going to go ahead and try to show you what I'm talking about as we switch over to our radar scope computer again. You'll be able to get a little bit better perspective here as we look. You see the eye here, the center of the eye right in there. So we're talking about north-northeast about 16 miles an hour. So again, it depends on when it hits the coast, because if it hits the coast here, we're only talking maybe, about 4 more hours. But if it kind of wandered along here, we're talking about even longer than that, as we are kind of looking ahead here in time. And I might have this a little centered a little far north, so I'm going to try to put this down here just once again. We'll measure it maybe a little further down here, actually, to look back, because you kind of see the differences. You kind of have to figure out exactly where the center of that eye is, where the lowest pressure is, because that's when official landfall would be. But you get the idea here. We're watching maybe 4 hours, maybe a little bit longer than that. It just depends. Maybe even a little shorter if it kind of wobbles to the west a little bit. So again, a nasty scenario and tornado warnings in play as you look up toward Wilmington. We'll come back onto camera now, I think. We'll go ahead and switch back on over to our GR level 3 computer, so we can go ahead and, again, we're keeping an eye on radar scope here because this kind of gives us a unique perspective here of this situation. But again, we do have this tornadic situation here around Wilmington, where they're under a tornado warning there in the metro area, and we're watching to see exactly what the circulation does look like here. I think they were tracking this off of Carolina Beach a few minutes ago. That's probably what prompted it. It looks like it did down here. And now to move this back up, you see that circulation there. Not too tight, but in this situation, it doesn't have to be too tight to produce a lower end tornado with winds maybe about 80 miles an hour or so here. Moving toward Myrtle Grove, and now going to be moving in that Wilmington area here. The tornado warning here is for western New Hanover and northeastern Brunswick County in southeastern North Carolina until 9 o'clock tonight at 8:25. A severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado was located over Carolina Beach, moving northwest at about 45 miles an hour. We're talking about South Masonboro Island, South Masonboro Island, North Masonboro Island, Myrtle Grove, Silver Lake, also getting toward Masonboro itself, Wilmington here too. Wilmington about 8:45, so we're talking about 10 minutes or so from Wilmington, a highly populated area now under a tornado warning here from this storm. Again, you see the hook here on this. I'll point it out if you can't. I kind of pointed it out with the mouse here, but I'll move this over even a little bit more. You can kind of see it here in that Myrtle Grove area. Again, we have a tornado here potentially. Let's see if there's debris to kind of confirm this. Now, that's not correlated here. That's something down to the south, and there's a warning down there, but that's not in the right spot. Those aren't adding up. So that's not a tornado there, and we don't have a debris signature yet, but you can't wait for a debris signature. I know we had a situation there in Florence, for instance, so they zoom back out a little bit. We had a situation there with Hurricane Florence, where we had a bunch of tornado warnings around Wilmington. You just can't wait until you get that debris signature. I know they were just pounding for days and days with Florence. Luckily, this is going to be a quicker evolving situation for them, and that's some good news here. I know we're losing a few friends. We're switching between some stuff, but again, we are watching this scenario as it does evolve here. Again, with Florence, they were just pounded. I know it was a storm system, really like not many others here in this scenario, in this area here. So again, looking down to the south, you can see some of the stronger winds getting to Myrtle Beach now. These are some strong winds, about 50 miles an hour or so. So we're starting to see conditions there, and the Ward Conway even as well deteriorate. So things are really nasty here. You see the center. We'll have to watch to see the wobbles here because we start to see maybe some of this. You have to have the center of this to make landfall, but maybe a little depending on exactly how this is structured. We're looking off a different radar. I may need to switch to our Charleston radar on radar scope in fact here because this might give us a little bit better perspective, and actually I don't think we're seeing much of it because we have to look at different sides here because I switched over to the other system for this tornadic activity, but then as we look here we're watching some other acts, and I know I'm going to go ahead and make sure we have everything set up right here. So we're losing more frames as we're really busy here in the Weather Center. I apologize for that as we're trying to give you that latest information here. Just so much going on, and we're going to pop up radar scope again. You see here the left side of this as we're looking in toward areas not far from McClellanville. I'm sure they're losing some power there. I haven't really seen that in the report at the last check, but something to take note of. Here as we look here, we'll go to our other velocity mode as well, and you can see all these high wind values, really high winds. Seems like on the southern side here, that's where the hurricane hunters found the stronger wind here to classify this as a hurricane. So gotta be careful with this system. We're really watching it. I'm gonna also I see something off the Charleston radar that's kind of interesting for our area here. This is not too far away from our viewing area down toward areas like Baxley, for instance. Surrency here. You see some of these other areas. We're not far away. Let's see if there's anything. This is a hard view on the radar. I'm just curious if there's anything going on here because this is not really from the storm system, but it's the overall pattern. There's some lightning there. I know a couple months ago we had a storm kind of dip down and surprised everybody from this similar area, produced a tornado warnings in our area, but not expecting anything here with that. But we're just watching the system here as we look off toward the east here and off toward the north with our hurricane. Now again, it's a Category 1 storm. We're going to continue to keep you updated here, just seeing some of the latest information as it does come out. I know flash flood watch is in play, the storm surge threat as well. We're going to be here to give you that latest detail, that latest information, and we're back here about 9 o'clock with more, unless I need to break back in sooner. So just stay tuned. We're continuing to watch things, switching between radars here. We're continuing to keep you updated on that tornado warning. Just continue there. And this is getting a little tighter now, a little more woe to find. Moving toward Wilmington near Silver Lake. Let's see if there's debris again. Because if we get a tornado moving, oh, that might be something. Okay, I think that's a tornado, guys. So we're going to stick with this. Let's take a... I can't guarantee that because we're getting some weird signatures in here, but that might be a tornado over Silver Lake. So this is hard to verify, but I think... because this, I mean, that's correlating pretty well, actually. I have weather service hadn't said anything, but that's right where the rotation is as we look down to the south a little bit. So we'll find out here. That doesn't really add up on that mode, though. Interesting. That's interesting. Wait, sure. That's an odd scenario here. I think that might be hidden. Not. We're close to. Let's see. We just got an update. They're still going radar indicated near Wilmington. I'm trying to see here, make sure we don't have a tornado on the ground. This is an odd scenario we're getting. Let me find out where that radar is. It's down here. I'm not sure. That's maybe some inflow here. Maybe that's what that is here. That could be. That's an odd signature here on our debris tracker. Can't get. I'm not really correlating. They're not saying it's confirmed. So we'll continue to watch this. If we get a confirmed tornado moving toward downtown Wilmington, we'll make sure we cut in. Just go ahead and take shelter because there's a radar indicated tornado. I can't confirm it because it's kind of a cluttered signature, but you see some strong winds at least, if nothing else. Here moving into Wilmington about 60 miles an hour. So we're going to knock out some power here. Not too far away from Leland as well there. I know that's where one of the TV stations I think is still out there in that region. So going to be continuing to watch here. We're going to continue to give you the latest updates, and I'll be back here as necessary. If not before 9 o'clock, I'll see you at 9. Meteorologist Casey Cloud back here in the Weather Center. We have some late breaking details. I see that tornado warning there near Wilmington. Haven't really necessarily seen anything on the ground there in or downtown Wilmington. I know there's been some reports of some roofs here in some other neighborhoods being destroyed even. But we're watching that, but we're also watching this storm because I need to go over to our other mode here to show you what I'm talking about in that we've got an increase now in wind speed here, folks. The wind is going up. They just issued an update to the National Hurricane Center as the hurricane hunters are finding even stronger winds. They found 75 knots here just a few minutes ago, which that's equivalent to 86 miles an hour, and the Hurricane Center now going to 85 in an update here at 9. This is getting stronger than anticipated now here. Data from an Air Force Hurricane Hunter there aircraft. We're talking about an Air Force Reserve Hurricane Hunter aircraft and NOAA Doppler radars indicated the maximum sustained winds associated with the hurricane have increased to about 85 miles an hour with higher gusts, and that the minimum pressure measured by the plane here was at 988 millibars. Bowie recently reported a gust of 78 in the southwest eye wall here as this storm moves off to the north-northeast at about 18. So picking up speed now. It's located 55 miles south-southeast of Myrtle Beach. So we're talking about the pressure down to 988 there, but the wind is the big factor. We're talking about a wind here of 85 sustained. That's a big deal. I know we're getting some tornado reports in Brunswick County there. It looks like a roof torn off a home. And Bald Head Island, we were talking about the fire alarms going off there earlier, but now we have a even stronger Category 1 hurricane. We need the winds to get to 100 to be a Category 2, so that would probably be unlikely here, but we'll watch to see the measurements. I don't think we're going to get a Cat 2, but it's getting close to Hannah's strength there in Texas, and it was in an area there at first a little more rural, but moved in a more populated area and not had a bunch of power. So let's go ahead and compare and contrast here. I have a graphic about Hannah here up in the system now. We'll show you what I'm talking about. This was last week with Hurricane Hannah here. This storm had maximum sustained winds there of 90 miles an hour, but the pressure was a lot lower, meaning it was a deeper system, a stronger system overall, 973 millibars. It was more potent there in that it was able to kind of hold its own a little bit. Now this will be closer to water, and that'll have an influence on it. There's also some other things here, some other characteristics as it does transition to become an extratropical, as it's going to kind of hold its own here to an extent. But it's comparing and contrasting here. 9 days ago we had Hurricane Hannah. It was a little bit deeper, a little more energy involved here, as it was a stronger storm in general. The pressure lower there, but still, again, we're watching the scenario here as we get back inward parts of the Carolinas. Again, we have a hurricane here. Hurricane warning continues for Wilmington, for Myrtle Beach, some other areas there as well. We're talking about Conway in this too, Georgetown, at the last check anyway. Watching this situation carefully here in the region. Again, we're just trying to give you the latest details. I see there's a new tornado watch now that just popped up on the screen here. So let's talk about this. We'll take off the radar and we'll show you what this is all about. And I may be able to, let's see here, get the information on this. This just got issued at 8:50 Eastern North Carolina, the coastal waters till 6 a.m. A nocturnal tornado threat here, folks. And the storm is going to track northward across these areas, conditions favorable for tornadoes. So it is very important for people in this area to have ways to get those alerts. Let's pop up our Wilmington radar to show you a circulation right now. Again, as we pop this up, and that circulation actually tightens a little bit on our radar scope computer. We're going to be seeing this right now. It's just very important for people tonight to have those ways to get those alerts. It's paramount because we could have tornadoes popping up even if you don't get the strongest winds. That area there we've been talking about here in eastern North Carolina has a pretty significant chance for tornadic activity. I can't emphasize it enough. Look at all these areas here. I'm just seeing all this. This is reminding me of last year with Dorian. We had this outbreak of tornadoes there, supercells at least, on the Doppler radar, and you can see 1, 2, 3 it looks like there. Some other areas. I'll see if some of these are rotating a little stronger than others as we get updates on some mornings, but we're going to get you the latest here on our radar scope computer right now. It's going to give you that detailed information here on the velocity mode. we'll be able to see what's happening. The tornado warning does continue there for Bladen and Pender counties until 9:15 this evening. At 9:04, a severe thunderstorm was located over Point Caswell, or 15 miles southwest there of another community, a more populated area like Burgal. If I'm pronouncing that right, I may not be, but it's moving northwest here at 50. That tornado, these other circulations don't actually look as tight on here, which is good, but you have these potent winds. My goodness, these are really strengthening here. 104, 111. Now, some of these are a little higher up, so they're not all translating, but that's really, it seems like it's strengthening here as it comes into view. Let's go ahead and kind of loop this here over the last little bit. We're going to continue to give you the latest here on this scenario as it does evolve. We'll get you those different frames here so you can see what I'm talking about. But that wind energy, interesting to see on the southern side here, see how much it translates, because sometimes if you get a landfall here, as it looks like we might be getting a little bit of a nudge here to the left with this eye now. If I'm looking at this right, you can kind of see the center. It looks like it's getting closer here. We might have a landfall a little quicker than we were anticipating if this does wobble here some. But you see these strong winds. If it makes landfall, we could have it lose some energy. Not a lot, but a little as the eye there gets over to land first, possibly. We'll have to see exactly how things evolve. But those are some really strong winds. In the last few minutes, you don't know much of a difference. But we're looking at Charleston, looking at some different things here, and we weren't really seeing those brighter colors earlier. So something to tell the story here. We just want people to be cognizant. This is going to be a little more impactful than even what we were thinking. I mean, the hurricane warning got issued early this morning, but the storm's ramping up here in intensity. This is why we were concerned in Florida for things like this. Luckily, nothing verified really in Florida whatsoever in terms of much of an impact, but this is having an impact here, and we just want folks to be cognizant. Now, they're tracking this north-northeast, but again, this center here, if this is what we're watching, it's getting closer now. I was kind of projecting it maybe making a landfall, maybe a beeline, as I kind of move it down just a little. We were kind of maybe talking about a beeline this way, as it's kind of hard to read some of that information as we're looking at the edge of the eye right now, so the measurement's a little skewed from what we were doing earlier. And actually, that is strange. I'm going to have to, let me see here. I'm looking at this, and that might actually not be the eye, because we were trying to, and I might have misread that. I apologize. I think I misread that because we're looking on different radars and it gets confusing in here, and I misread that. I apologize here. So let's go ahead and get back down. This is actually the eye. We're switching between radars, so it gets kind of complicated here because that kind of on velocity, that kind of looked like an eye because of the way the radar is reading things. But as we switch between radars, this is the eye here. So we're talking not on the southeastern side, we're talking about the eastern side here. And we're going to continue to watch this as we look because we kind of get involved here, and we're seeing that eye structure. So it's still further to the south. I'm going to see if we can come back here on camera. This gets really kind of complicated when we get deeper into this sometimes. So just bear with me as we try to watch how things do evolve here. Again, you see the tornado watch and play here. We're watching for that tornado threat as we get deeper into the evening. But let's go ahead and put up our full radar here. And again, you're seeing here, I know this kind of, if you didn't know any better, like I didn't know better a minute ago there, kind of looks like an eye. But no, this is the center down here for sure. The hurricane center where we're tracking things is down here. But still, seeing a little bit of a dry slot in there is kind of interesting. And on velocity, it kind of looked like a second center. So again, we're watching this here. We're continuing to give you the latest information. I see in our local area, not too far away, some significant weather advisory information now coming out for Applin and Wayne. So we're watching some of that action there, as I was talking about earlier, in South Georgia. But again, this is a storm here. We're going to continue to watch it. Continue to watch these winds. Continue to watch the storm surge thread. And I'll be back around 9:30 with more information. Again, this right here is your center as we're looking out here with the arrows right in here. Again, there's your center. The velocity kind of giving us a false reading. I was kind of misinterpreting that there. So we'll continue to watch, continue to give you the updates here in the Weather Center. Meteorologist Casey Cloud back here at the bottom of the hour as we continue to watch this situation here as it does evolve on your Monday evening. We have this hurricane, if you're just tuning in here, upgraded to a Cat 1 earlier and winds now up to 85 miles an hour. So again, we are watching this scenario very carefully. This is the eye, just to kind of give you a better and clearer look at things, to be able to see what I'm talking about here. This is the center, this whole area here. I know I kind of misread that and misexplained that there earlier, but again, we're going to continue to watch this center as you look off of Georgetown, off of Myrtle Beach, and this is tracking north-northeast. So again, we're watching the center here as I look off. We're probably about 2 or 3 hours away from a landfall here in this area. So probably talking here, it's 9:30 right now, so 11:30, 12:30, somewhere in there with our landfall. So just to clear that up a little bit, I even have it circled here on our other mode because I was looking at velocity there and I pointed out the wrong area because as you kind of get in velocity sometimes it gets a little bit complicated. So here's radar scope circled as well. This is the center of circulation here, and then I'll show you where the winds are. Now the reason the winds kind of look weird is because on the other radar you can see them from the other side. So this has them strong here on the northeastern side. The other radar showed them strong on the southern side just based on where they are, kind of having to shoot through some stuff. So just a clarification, there's our storm. We have some strong winds around this, and we're continuing to watch here again that movement here toward the coastline over the next little bit of landfall here later tonight. So as you look here, there's your center again, and then I kind of put the mouse here and you see maybe a landfall there, maybe around Oak Island, somewhere in there, give or take a little bit, because the coast, the way it is, it could kind of just a little bit of a move here and we could see a little bit of a change. But something else that's noteworthy here in the chat section, getting information now in just the last few minutes, gust there at 93 miles per hour at the frying pan tower there. So again, something that's pretty nasty here. This situation pretty significant in toward this region. Again, there's your center of circulation. Let's see if there's anything inside of this that we can see off of the Wilmington radar, maybe like birds or insects. We're not really seeing that right now, and we'll have to just continue to watch. When it's really well defined, you can sometimes see that here, but continuing to watch, continue to look at different perspectives. We'll check the Charleston radar to see if we see any of those inside of this. As you see it strong on the other side, just the way it's shooting at it and getting that look here, and you're not really seeing that from that perspective either. So just trying to give you some different perspectives here. Make sure you know exactly where that center of circulation is. You have the worst wrapping around it. It's hard to tell here based on how we're looking at some different things, but also some storm surge in Myrtle Beach. There's pretty nasty conditions there in terms of some of the coastal impacts there in the Myrtle Beach as well. So we're talking about right in here, there's some surge there reaching the parking lot of a sea captain's house there. So got to be really cognizant of that as the evening does move along, getting that significant scenario evolving. I know the information I got earlier here from the chat is that the tide level at the Spring-Made Pier was 9.89 feet, and that's the third highest, only behind Matthew and Hugo. Hugo was a catastrophic storm in the water region. So again, just interesting to see that tide level there at 9.89 feet a little while ago there, according to the chat session. So again, just giving you some of this information here on radar scope. We'll punch back the other system now. No active tornado warnings as of a moment ago, but that just changed, I believe. We have a tornado warning actually pretty far to the north here, and this is up here northeast one quarter. This just got issued here in the last few minutes for Washington as well as northwestern Hyde and west central Tyrell counties here. This is severe thunderstorm capable of producing a tornado located over Alligator Lake, or 25 miles southeast of Plymouth, moving north at about 35 miles an hour. We're talking about Woodley, Pleasant Grove, Westover in here, so you kind of get the idea with this. You got that tornado watching point. We got to watch for these spin-ups here throughout the night and then tomorrow, and even a tornado threat as we get further up here tomorrow. Ironically, already some severe weather here tonight from some other acts in toward New York, but I'm going to have to watch that tornado threat there tomorrow. You see the center again. You see these bands. Let's pull up some of these wind speeds. We haven't done this in a little while. Let's go ahead and get in here. You see Wilmington, just south of there, Southport, at the Brunswick County Airport, 38 knots. So we're talking about winds there to 44 miles an hour. Wilmington proper, 34 knots to 39 miles an hour there. Getting toward North Myrtle Beach there. North Myrtle Beach at Grand Strand, 33 knots, so just under tropical force. Down there in that other band feature here, that eyewall, if you want to, again, pretty much call it that. It's just complicated. We're looking at different features here. That I think that is your eye wall, but as we're it's complicated here because again, you're looking here, and I think you can call that the southwestern or western side of the eye wall there. And we're talking about 40 knots, which is equivalent to 46 miles an hour. That's a little low, honestly, to be in some of the stronger conditions, but we're getting a lot of that sample in the eastern and southern, I think, based on some of our radar information. So these winds should really pick up. You got to chart at those devices. Let's pop up radar scope again here as we're continuing to look at the Myrtle Beach area. Continue to watch the conditions there. Be pretty nasty with that storm surge, with those levels there, those tide levels extremely high. Some really nasty conditions in that area from this storm that strengthened to 85 miles an hour now on those maximum sustained winds. So the situation keeps getting nastier and more significant as we look ahead. Again, we're continuing to give you the updates. Let's pop up a camera right now we have in the area. We'll go ahead now and switch you over to a camera that we have there, weather stem. Look at things there as we get toward the Wilmington area. I have UNC Wilmington in the system. This is North Hanover County, and you'll be able to see what's happening there right now. And you see those dark conditions, those gloomy conditions with the rain on the camera lens. So again, trying to give you some different perspectives, trying to see what's actually happening there. I know more information from the Weather Service in Wilmington about reports of roof have blown off a structure there in Garden City. Not much information known at this time. Reported by the Georgetown Emergency Management there, Georgetown County Emergency Management, that is. So another update now in Georgetown proper in South Carolina as we kind of clarify and move between different Georgetown designations. We'll go ahead now and look down there because we're watching here exactly what is happening on our other system. We're talking about our GR Earth computer. You'll be able to see what I'm talking about here with that in just a moment as we go between some different things. Now a wind of 43 knots there at Georgetown, so we're talking about 50, so those winds going up there as you kind of would expect. I'm sure those power outages are increasing as well. Let's pop up some of those numbers now here as we look ahead with that. Our power outage.us still not showing all that impressive numbers, but as we get toward Georgetown County, only 942 customers without power there, but I'm sure that number is going to go up as the evening progresses here, as the worst of the winds do come on in. We'll pop that on so you can kind of see here a map of the entire state where some power outages in the western part of the state actually more significant here. So that's something that's kind of interesting to note, not directly from the storm here. Getting some more information from the Georgetown Emergency Management there. Also reporting possible dune breaches from surge with knee-deep water there on one of the roads in Garden City. So things escalating here as we've been talking. A nasty scenario does continue. We're right now at 9:38. We're going to do another update here at 10, and then we'll switch to a different stream here as we continue our coverage in the 10:30 and later as we approach landfall here in toward the South Carolina, North Carolina region. So there's your power outage.us map for now. Only about 4,500 customers died in the state, but we're going to watch that Palmetto State as those values go up in the northeastern part of the state here this evening. Again, continuing to watch that situation as it does escalate, and we'll be here to get you through it here throughout the evening and the overnight hours as well as it does continue to evolve. For now, meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center. We'll see you back here at 10 o'clock unless we have some pertinent information we need to get you earlier. As storm surge values increase, the conditions deteriorate in the region. Meteorologist Casey Cloud back with you here as we near the top of the hour. You do see a tornado warning for downtown Wilmington now, so let's go ahead and show you what we're talking about with that. You can see the circulation here. We had a hook a little more well defined on the last couple frames here near Silver Lake, but we're watching this here near Wilmington, some rotation. There's a gate to gate. We'll go ahead and zoom on in here a little bit. You see red, this is going away from the red, or the green and the blue going toward it. We're getting about 60 miles an hour, maybe a little bit higher of circulation here, and it's going to be impacting areas as it moves off here to circulation to the northwest at 60 areas here near Wilmington, maybe just west of Wilmington on the west side of town, maybe moving here to kind of bat this up just a little bit. You kind of have to, it's kind of tricky in this situation. It's kind of flowing here, so maybe closer to Leland here over the next little bit. We'll have to wait and see as it kind of tracks and kind of evolves here over the next little bit. So again, we're watching this. This is the earlier circulation here as we go back, and then we're going to see the other one come into focus here as we get the latest information here in the system. You'll be able to see what we're talking about here with this, and you see it popping up, and it looks like it's aiming more for Leland there. So we're going to continue to watch that carefully and see if there's any tornadic debris here in this general area. And that doesn't really look like anything off to the east, but we'll watch. I know earlier we thought we might have had something, but I think that was just inflow because that's not in the right spot there either. So that's some good news, at least for tornado warning for downtown Wilmington. The second of the night there, a tornado warning there in downtown Wilmington. This is for New Hanover, southwestern Pender, northeastern Brunswick, east central Columbia counties there in North Carolina, southeast North Carolina till 10:30 this evening. We're talking about there some of those populated areas. We're even talking about the University of North Carolina at Wilmington right around now. We have a camera there, so let's go ahead and pop that up, see if we can see anything. I'm not sure which way it's pointed, but we'll go ahead and pop it up just to see if we can make out anything here on the view. And let me see here. I don't really see anything right now, so that's good, but it'd be hard to see here at night. There's just one little area here. So again, just trying to give you a little perspective. I'll even step out of the way, just make sure I don't see anything as I'll step all the way off, just to make sure we don't see anything at the right side of the screen here, and we don't. So I'll go ahead and step back in now as we continue our coverage here. Again, meteorologist Casey Cloud here in the Weather Center. Again, this tornado warning there in the word Wilmington. But let's get back to the storm system as we're at 10 o'clock. We have a new update here from the National Hurricane Center. So let me go ahead now and I'll switch away from this camera right now. We'll go ahead and get you to a broader perspective here as I see some wind damage reports. One coming in here of a downed tree on power lines there in parts of New Hanover County. You see it here near Carolina Beach, not far away from there, but the update here at 10 o'clock from the National Hurricane Center now does have those maximum sustained winds. Well, we don't actually have the update at 10. It doesn't look like. Are they going to do this? Well, I'm curious. They might not do one at 10, but because they had the new information at 9. But in general, when we get close to a landfall, they'll do them every hour. So I'll check back here in just a moment with that. So again, we are tracking here a possible circulation here southwest of Wilmington. And we're going to be watching for Leland here over the next little bit. Again, we're talking about this area here. And let's go ahead and go back over toward our other viewpoint. Again, as we look at the storm, we're getting closer here, ever closer to a landfall. Again, we have Myrtle Beach here. The winds, we got to watch for storm surge. We're getting some of those different reports. So we just got to watch here. With those different reports, storm surge, the wind direction is critical in the storm surges. You have different winds. You see down toward Georgetown now, the winds are going out. But as you're looking to Myrtle Beach, the winds are coming in. I mean, the storm surge is still coming in there in some of these areas, in some of these spots as we get up the coast even here. So we got to be mindful. I know we had that surf level there, or excuse me, that tide level. And the surf's been high, but that tide level there in the word Myrtle Beach at about almost 10 feet. So something that's very, very large, very, very high in the ward region. Again, we're continuing to track this scenario. Let's go ahead and, as we're going to wrap this stream up here in a moment and start back another one as we get closer to landfall. I'm going to go ahead and kind of broaden things out some here as that damage and wind risk has intensified a little bit as we get further inland even, because this will probably be a little stronger than what we were anticipating. We're anticipating that this may be barely becoming a hurricane, and instead it's got 10 miles over that criteria that we need for it to become a hurricane. So maybe add 10 miles an hour, give or take, to some of these locations as we get further in. I see the tornado warning. Okay, confirmed tornado near Leland. So look, we'll get back to the track in a moment. Let's get back over here. Confirmed tornado near Leland now. So let's go ahead and get in here. You see the circulation. Let's check for the debris, and there it is. That's why they see that. There's your tornado on the ground here. We're talking about it right over US 17 there in toward parts of North Carolina. A confirmed tornado there in the Leland area, moving toward Leland. So folks need to take shelter in this region. We'll switch over here to our other Doppler again. We'll go ahead and give you a different viewpoint of this as we look to the north. Again, a confirmed tornado now here in toward the Leland area. So let's go ahead and pop this on here. This gate's right near Leland, and you'll be able to see what I'm talking about here. Once we go ahead, you'll see this area right in there, again over 17. That tornado on the ground there in toward this area. Again, it's near Phoenix or near Leland, moving northwest at 60 miles an hour, and that debris even showing up a little bit more vividly here on this display right over Leland here, depending on exactly where the cities are marked. The latest frames coming in. So we have a tornado on the ground, the confirmed tornado now near Phoenix, moving near about 60 to the north and west. So again, a confirmed tornado there in the Wilmington metro area per se. Now that's where one of the TV stations has been. They're probably taking shelter. They haven't already, just from experience dealing with Florence there a couple years ago, watching some of that coverage in the Wardau region, watching some of that information come out. So again, they might have been building a new studio too, so they may not be in that same spot anymore. I'll have to look into that. But if they are, we're watching here the Wardau region. Again, we're watching that debris signature in Leland there. Not what you want to see. Again, a tornado on the ground. We're going to continue to watch this scenario. You have these other areas we're going to be watching. You have the storm south here. You see the center of circulation. We have this center here, and we'll circle it here again. If you're just tuning in, make sure you get this exactly right when we'll have it. And you'll be able to see here, again, this movement here is off to the north-northeast. So that landfall here in this general area as we're looking later on. Again, getting some of the worst weather right now here in toward Oak Island, in toward Little River, getting some of the worst weather here as we look here down toward this region. Again, in this circled area, I'll see some of these winds. You can see what I'm talking about. Look at that level of wind moving into Oak Island here over the next few minutes. These are some really strong winds aloft, but they're going to be translating. I mean, we had reports that are really high there at the site there, the Frying Pan site there, in fact. I think Frying Pan Island, if I recall correctly. So we're going to continue to watch here this scenario as it does evolve. Again, these are really, really strong winds moving on in. Again, we're watching that storm surge as well. Things escalating here, getting worse in the region as we have that confirmed tornado on the ground as well. I'll pop myself back on here. Again, we're continuing to watch this situation. Again, we have that circulation there near Leland. Again, a confirmed tornado on the ground here. You see it on our debris, not really deep, so maybe not a strong tornado, but still causing some damage, enhancing the damage from the hurricane. Another hurricane. I mean, we didn't know this was going to be a hurricane here earlier today, and yesterday especially. We moved on in, but we're going to have a hurricane landfall in the U.S. here pretty soon, and we're getting some of the worst that the system has to offer right now. Moving on into some of these communities. You see North Myrtle Beach there too. So as I look here for the update here, if there's one in here, and we don't have an update yet, so they may not do one here at 10, but we're getting more reports of damage, more reports of power outages coming in. We'll be back here by about 10:30 with more information here as we start another live stream as we get ready for the hurricane landfall here in the Weather Center. Again, a hurricane warning does continue there as we look from areas there from the South Santee River to Surf City. We're also talking about Myrtle Beach. We're talking about Wilmington under this hurricane warning. This storm's going to have an impact up and down the eastern seaboard. I know I was referring to this earlier. And let me go ahead and finish my thought here as we look ahead. on this, because we're looking here at these impacts, and this is something that really, I mean, we had Irene back in 2011, and this situation may be a little less serious than Irene, but it's still, there's some comparisons here, especially with this becoming a hurricane now that can be made here as we're looking from North Carolina. You see these areas of red, and this is going to extend all the way through here with some gusts maybe near hurricane force as we look into eastern North Carolina and eastern Virginia at least. So we have to be cognizant of that here in the Weather Center. I know they're talking about maybe some reports of that tornado there in toward the Phoenix area. We're going to try to get more information on that. But we got to watch it because we're going to lose a lot of power in this area. I know another graphic I was using earlier here in our system. I just want people in the path. You still have time, if you, especially as you're, I mean, you may still have time down towards South North Carolina as well if you haven't lost power yet and you're in this area. But as you get further up, you still do have time, and you've got to charge of those devices here, folks. That is paramount, because we're going to lose a lot of power. People are going to be without power for days probably as we look ahead. So people really need to be cognizant. A little stronger of storm, more wind here translating to the surface, causing more power outages as we look ahead. I know I didn't update this graphic, by the way. This is from the 5 o'clock update. It's a hurricane now, of course, but this graphic still stands here with what we're talking about with this scenario. Hurricane Isaias is going to pose a pretty significant wind damage threat up and down the eastern seaboard here. As you see this storm again, we'll go back over to our GR level 3 computer here as we wind down this update and get ready for another stream here and more coverage. We're starting to get some of these worst winds here, the worst of the winds coming into areas around Southport, Carolina Shores, and North Myrtle Beach as well here. So some really nasty conditions that northern part of the eye wall here impacting some of these communities. So we'll have to continue to watch. I'll be back here at about 10:30, maybe a little after, as we get ready for that 11 o'clock update here with more information. Stay tuned, everybody.